Goodwill workers, what are some of the weirdest or most interesting things people have donated? Story 1. Oh yeah, I used to work at a place in Canberra called the Green Shed. Place was pretty eye-opening. It's attached to the council transfer station, where people dump things for landfill. You drive in. To dump, you turn left. To recycle your appliance, furniture, or whatever, you turn right to the Green Shed and drop it off for free. The stuff is then resold very cheaply to the public. It looks and feels very charitable and good for the environment. Turns out the place is privately owned, and Canberra turning over something like 60% of its population every year due to all the politicians, military, and government personnel on annual contracts. And with all of these individuals highly paid, you get a surplus of new, near fully decked out apartments because the guy has to move back to Melbourne in 2 weeks and he just wants to donate all his stuff to a charity instead of selling it. New 60-inch TVs in the box, all sorts of things. And everyone in Canberra believes this place is a charity. They're turning over about $2 million a year and have almost no running costs. It gets crazier. They have a pickup service. I went to pick up a fridge from a girl who was moving interstate the next day. She gladly paid us $100 for the privilege of donating her fully operational fridge that we immediately tested and tagged and sold for $80 about 2 hours later. Many times I would pick up entire households worth of furniture and appliances and still somehow charge the customer $800 or so for the job and then resold the donated items for another $800 all in one day. People in Canberra praise this place because they publicly donated $10,000 to a charity. It's regarded as an amazing system for recycling. It's not like they accept things that are broken. Half the stuff they accept gets thrown away anyway. To answer your question, some people donated small yachts. I saw a golf cart, old cars, and more are regularly donated and then sold for real, tangible money that a private company earns. Story 2. Mandatory, I don't work at Goodwill or a thrift store, but I do work for a company that contracts to remove junk, trash, or unwanted items from various places. We donate the items that can be donated and trash the rest. We were once contacted by a strip club to remove some items due to a remodel. Not all that unusual, really. Our team gets to this joint and the owner asks them to instead remove 4 very large and owner extremely dirty mattresses from a dank room in the back. The mattresses were wrecked of alcohol and cigarettes and had some horrible stains that no body fluid could have made. We refused the job due to health concerns. We will frequently get jobs in which we are asked to remove items from a recently deceased person's residence, usually an apartment. We recently cleaned out a studio apartment after an elderly man passed away. Aside from the usual things, the apartment had 25 to 30 sealed cardboard boxes. Upon opening the boxes, we discovered that each one was filled to the brim with XXX magazines of all sorts of varieties. In any given month, we will find at least 3 or 4 erotic toys, and they're always dirty. We also find numerous undergarments, like bras, panties, and underpants, both men's and women's. These too are very usually dirty and would gag the most battle-hardened maggot. On the other end of the spectrum, you wouldn't believe the sheer amount of valuable stuff people throw out just because it's causing clutter. This includes things like a brand new all-clad cookware set, valued at $1,200, countless computers and monitors, furniture that is both high quality and in perfect condition, jewelry, tarnished silver, and even rare items such as paintings and artwork. Story 3. Intimate toys, crack pipes, weed. But the worst came from a guy in his 60s. He had been caught boning some other old dude in his front lawn. The police went into his house and saw his shrine to Justin Bieber and other famous teen boys. I'm not sure the logistics, but a condition of his probation was he had to get rid of everything. I think he had jail time for public boning, but he wasn't in long enough for child charges. So I'm not really sure how this worked, legally speaking. So he donates it all. I'm talking like 100 Justin Bieber dolls, still in the box. NSYNC dolls, High School Musical dolls, Bieber shirts, pillows, a Bieber wall clock, books, DVDs, and so much other random eBay stuff. He had probably over 300 Teen Bop type magazines, all in protective sleeves. He had like 30 eBay packages that were never even opened. He had everything inventoried. It took him 3 trips to donate it all. It was so creepy. We put it all out for a few weeks. Then the stuff that didn't sell, we packed up and put it in our back room to save for Christmas time. These were all young Bieber dolls, and this was well after he had shed that wholesome boy image. They were not in great demand since they were old. It sucked having to bust them all back out 6 months later to try to sell them again. It was a whole thing. Story 4. I had to do 100 hours of community service, so I chose Goodwill. Not a bad place to do it, other than the actual employees treating the volunteers like crap. Anyways, some of the fun stuff that I saw was an unopened package of novelty glasses from the 70s. When you put your cold drink in them, you get to see the ladies lose their clothes. I wanted to snag those, but the manager brought them to his office. One woman would show up every weekend and donate the trash from her car. Think fast food wrappers and junk mail. We would have to take it, and then it got thrown away right when she left. The one that stuck with me was some creepy guy who walked up to the donation area and asked if we could take underwear. I said we did, so he came back with one small bag of underpants. He replied, "Underwear." Jay put the bag with the rest of the clothes. Halfway back to his car, he turned around and came back and asked if I kept the underwear. I told him I did. He left for his car again. This happened about 3 more times before he drove off, coming back to make sure I wasn't going to throw away the underwears. I assured him I wasn't, but you could see he was getting off on this. He left, and those went right in the garbage. Story 5. Obligatory not Goodwill. I was a volunteer for some time at the Red Cross in my town. It was the summer between me moving from school to college, so I didn't really have much to do and decided to volunteer at this charity shop. A few weeks go by, as normal, easy jobs, cool people, but then we get a donation dropped to us. So the typical procedure is to actually bring everything in the shop and sign it over. No biggie. But this person left this box on the doorstep. There's something weird about this, though. So the manager decides to inspect the package. When they open the box, the smell was horrific. It smelled like someone had taken a crap on another crap, ate it, and then crapped it out again. Not pleasant at all. So against all common sense, my manager reaches her hand in and pulls out this 80s nightgown, kind of silky, with a horrible pattern, and as they're unraveling it, a small book falls out of the monkey fabric. My manager bends down to pick the book up, and I catch a glimpse of the title, 50 Ways to Shove a Chessboard in Your Butt. I peer into the box, and sure enough, there's about 9 chessboards with no white squares, just black and brown. I quit there the same day. Story 6. I have a different take on the Goodwill Gold, and also after reading this thread, ew, gross. My area of expertise is instruments, and occasionally people donate incredible antique instruments. There are many dealers who watch these, so it's not like you can go find one on the shelf for $50. But recently, for example, someone donated an amazing German cello from a respected maker, made around the 1750s. Even without being able to take a good look at it, at auction it could have gotten anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000. But beyond the monetary value, imagine the history of an instrument that old, outliving so many of its players, being played in courts and concert halls before electricity could light them, being made completely by hand. Even the source trees were cut down by hand and horses pulled them to a mill. Performance after performance for over 2.5 centuries, all to end up being given to Goodwill. It sort of short-circuits my mind a little bit to think about how we lived then and how we live now, and then sometimes how those times intersect at the Goodwill. Kind of sad, kind of beautiful. Story 7. The used vibrator was a highlight, with the added touch of a single pube stuck to it. The dead mouse was a somewhat different experience. The homemade jam was a nice one. We couldn't sell it, but we had pre-opening staff toast parties in honor of Mrs. Old Lady and her homemade plum jam. Edit, just remembered another one, the mystery knitter. So every so often, at various times of various days, a bag would appear, a nondescript white bag full with white tissue paper on top. In the bag would be beautiful knitted baby wear, cardigans, hats, booties, all different sizes and colors, all hand knitted with the same talcum powder scent. We'd try to stake out the front of the shop to find out who, but we never did. I still go in for a chat and a rummage, and the mystery knitter is still at it. We like to think of some wee old lady lurking around until the coast is clear, then finagling the bag into the shop and leaving the scene unnoticed. Story 8. So I've posted this in another thread 1.5 years ago, but it's still relevant. I was a lead at a Goodwill until about summer last year, but man, the stuff we would see, enjoy. Oh my god, my time to shine. Box full of erotic toys. Peter meter, a really tall shot glass to measure weighing size with. Fully loaded guns. meth, at least 3 times. And my personal favorite, our poor dead guy Gregory. He's a box of ashes that we have to keep in the cash room because we have to wait for loss control, or whoever, to pick him up. He's been with us for over a year now because no one from corporate ever takes him, and me and quite a few coworkers are very fond of him. Anytime we get a new cashier, we make sure to introduce them to Greg. And anytime something weird happens, well, it was probably Gregory's ghost. Can't make a omelet without cracking a few Gregs. Story 9. Used to frequent a place we called the Bins out in Sacramento. It was paid by the pound store. I think things got lightly combed over and inspected before being put on the floor because there was always a lot of really weird crap out there. Some of the weird crap I personally found were a boot full of dirty Polaroid for what looked like auditions for a XXX movie. They were really old, at least mid-80s. A piece to a handgun. Thing was busted to crap, but it was real. I informed the manager and they took it. No idea what happened to it. Anal beads. They looked like they were slimy, but I think the silicone or whatever was beginning to break down. Soiled underwear. When I first started going a bunch, I quickly realized why all the regulars wore gloves. I found crappy underwear more than once. Pretty nasty. Of course, everyone knows that the most valuable thing you could ever find at one of these places is a hat that says Foxy Grandpa. Story 10. I became good friends with one of the local Goodwill employees a few years back when I was into retro video game hunting. One day he tells me in a really excited voice, "Dude, don't make it super obvious. Look in the cart I'm sorting through." Inside was this beat-to-crap Walther PPK with the bluing worn off from years of use that looked so freaking cool. I asked him if I could buy it, but he told me Goodwill has a strict gun policy and his boss had already been informed about the gun by a coworker. He just wanted to show me because he knew I would lose my mind over it, just like he had. I've found a bunch of other rare, interesting things since then, but I really wish I had somehow gotten my hands on that Walther. Story 11. Not Goodwill, but a UK charity shop. To name a few of the weird things we've had, a small bag of human teeth, a box of plastic spiders, various BDSM kits and outfits, a pillow shaped like a pair of boots, inflatable sumo suits. Pretty much every day we get something along those lines in. I'd say the most interesting, but also the saddest, was when we had a lady ask if her friend could donate a serious amount of clothes. Turned out her friend lost his wife 4 years ago and had only just felt ready to let go. Whilst we were going through the donation, lots of the clothes still had tags on. Heartbreaking to think she just never had the chance to wear them, and that some of the worn items were things he'd picture his wife in after she'd gone. Story 12. My time to shine. I worked at a Goodwill for 5 years. I'm just going to list off some that come to memory. Box of kittens, a live hand grenade, about 5 guns, straight garbage, urns with ashes, bongs, toys, money, bag of weed, Pyrex that people cooked meth in. A guy bought his girlfriend a $15,000 engagement ring and tennis bracelet for when he was going to propose. She said no, and he was too embarrassed to return it, so he donated it for a tax write-off. Sometimes rich people upgrade furniture and would donate pristine furniture. Goodwill is a terrible company and is only trying to make as much money as possible. One of the sayings on pricing was, just go high because we can always go down, but can't raise the price. Story 13. Someone once brought in some creepy statues of children. They looked all right until you saw their eyes. Oh God, their eyes! They were indentations made by the artist's fingers, so they looked gouged out. Apparently they were made by some famous person. They came with certificates as though someone would actually want those things. I tried so hard to find the name of the statues and artist, but can't find it, and it's driving me crazy. Anyone know who it is? Update. Found it. Look up sculptures by Lee Bortons. After hours of searching creepy sculptures and surfing eBay, I now have nightmares and Google will keep fueling me with ads about them. Yay. Story 14. I worked for the 13 largest churches in the USA's donation store. I was head of customer relations and item specialist. I've found everything from erotic toys, ancient family photos, a book from 1812, multiple old shopping lists, mostly wool socks, books, farming tools. One time we got an entire semi-trailer full of fold-out sofas. Another time I got a set of fancy china that was platinum rimmed and sold for $6,000. We also sold a super old self-playing piano from like forever ago that worked. The best thing I ever sold, though, was a SNES game that was only ever made like a few times, called Final Fight Guys. I don't know how much we got for it. They sold it on eBay. Sadly, my job is closed now. Story 15. We got a hella expensive gold necklace, like $1,500. Our price printer only went up to $9.99, so that small necklace in a bag had 2 price tags on it. My manager put up a sign on the front door saying it existed if someone wanted to buy it. I was in shock as to why someone would just donate an expensive jewelry necklace. It was insane. Someone came in wanting to buy it, and the manager had to sell it to him because a lowly cashier might mess it up. Except my manager, messing up, only scanned one of the price tags. She got fired by a higher-up for missing out on $500. Story 16. Story time with both points of view. I used to work at my area's Goodwill corporate, and my ex-girlfriend was a manager at the store closest to my apartment. While my new girlfriend was moving into my apartment, I saw a box of clothing that she was about to throw away. There was some pretty good stuff in there, loft, etc. So instead of throwing it away, I put it in my car and dropped it off at the local store right into the arms of my ex. I wasn't a half mile down the road when I received a text from her, "Freaking really?" and a photo of a huge purple toy and 2 vibrators. Story 17. Not a Goodwill, but worked for a recycling company where we tried to refurbish what we could to keep as much waste from landfills as we could. Working TRS 80 with all accessories, documentation, hell, even the unused warranty card. Or the HP oscilloscope, can't remember model, but one of the really expensive ones used by cell tower techs. Basically 15 or so tools in one 75-pound box. When you deal with secondhand goods, you learn 2 things. It's amazing what people throw away, and more amazing what utter crap people buy on eBay. Story 18. I worked for them many years ago. Good work, good pay, good... Screw Goodwill. We got toys sometimes. Big double dongs. One time we got a bag of stinky clothes. We didn't wash them, so whatever. We opened the bag after they drove off, and there was a rotting, bloody rabbit pelt in one of the shirts. We constantly got sneaky, stupid people trying to legally dump mattresses and lawnmowers, crap we don't take, but they do sell them, because Goodwill is the echelon of freaking bullcrap without any standards or regulations. Legit great people, though. Story 19. My friend and I were headed home from a day of skiing, and he forgot to buy his girlfriend a birthday gift. We scrambled to the nearest Goodwill we could find and combed the shelves for something to get her. We were quite dejected and couldn't figure out what would suffice when, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a signed picture of Vin Diesel in an elegant frame, staring up at me through the glass of the display case. The price, you ask? A paltry $11 scored him the ultimate gift for his beloved. They broke up a week later. Story 20. I've seen a giant 3-foot inflatable peen that we named Peter, a hand grenade, and an entertainment center with a bird nest inside. I actually haven't seen that many intimate toys while producing. We do get plenty of crap that should have just ended up at the dump. TVs, moss-covered stuff, literal garbage bags. And most of the time we aren't allowed to say no to a donation unless it specifically has a TV, mattress, or gasoline-powered object. You'd be amazed at how many stuffed animals we get that have all kinds of funky stains covering them. Story 21. Hey, a question I can answer. I've got lots of stuff. The usual erotic toys, lots of weed, I got a barrel of wine, used needles, one of which I found with my finger, once accidentally accepted a cat hiding in a box of clothes. There were things like a 14-foot Christmas tree, Nazi lantern, knit peen sock, and a guy tried to give me his truck once, which apparently my store does take vehicles, but those are picked up after paperwork is filed and not donated directly to the store. My lead got mad at me for taking a bouncy castle once. Story 22. Not a Goodwill worker, but I do work in a locally owned charity shop. We've gotten all sorts of things, from an antique gramophone to weird stuff like fetish wear. There's no limit to what people donate, really, and it keeps things interesting when we inevitably have to sort through it all. Sometimes people do dump their garbage for us to clean up or rummage through our bins. It's kind of nasty, but it's part of what keeps me interested in the work I do. Story 23. My mom regularly goes to the Goodwill. She was getting a Kleenex box cover thing. While she was inspecting this Kleenex box thingy, she discovered the previous owner had hidden about $1,500 in it. All old vintage bills from the 1980s. Not even the Goodwill people had noticed it. Of course, she bought it for like $5 and in turn took in a $1,495 profit. Probably my family's most amazing Goodwill story. Story 24. I'm not a thrift store worker, but I do go into thrift stores fairly often and have found some interesting things that the employees apparently didn't know what the items were when they came in. I have occasionally found a glass bong sitting out with other pieces of glassware or with decorative vases. I've also seen a wiener pump, as well as a few other types of erotic toys sitting out on shelves. Story 25. Goodwill was my first job. My first day of working there, I opened a box and saw some yarn. It looked suspicious, so I poked it and a bunch of pinkies, baby mice, crawled out. That was a pretty good indicator of what the next year of my employment was going to be like. The only thing I really learned was that people take donation to mean free trash dump. Story 26. Used to be a donation attendant. My personal weirdest one was when a very old woman came to donate. Sweetest woman I've ever met in donations. Just one bag full of DVDs. Didn't need a receipt. Easy peasy. I go to open it, and it's like 40 DVDs of the grossest XXX stuff I've ever seen. The other DAs and I were laughing for a good while after that. Story 27. I posted this story before. My mom used to work at Goodwill, and one day a real Louis Vuitton purse and matching wallet got donated. She started working there specifically to get first dibs on stuff, and she decided she would buy the purse for my sister. But when she opened the wallet to check it out, it was filled with human teeth. Story 28. Picked up a bunch of stuff from a girl's house as she was moving out. Bed, furniture, cartons of household goods, and suitcases. One of the suitcases was full of erotic toys, bondage gear, and some things we were all like, what the F? It was a religious charity, so it really was a moment when that suitcase was opened. Story 29. My brother used to work there, and one time someone donated, probably by accident, a pair of fake breasts, like the ones some cancer patients get. Anyway, he got the idea of a little bit of a skinny dude walking around with some D-cup titties. It would be hilarious. Turns out it was, and the looks he got were priceless. Story 30. Not me, but a friend of mine told me this story. She was sorting through donations and found a sweater with what appeared to be a really detailed mouse design on the front. Upon closer inspection, it was a dead mouse that had been mashed into the sweater for so long that the two fused together. Or it could have been a really vintage mouse rat band shirt. Story 31. We got a winter jacket with a lice comb and an extremely old hard-boiled egg once. My coworker took the egg out back and chucked it, which is how we found out about it being hard-boiled. Also, people have accidentally donated their groceries before. That's always interesting. Story 32. I was looking around at a thrift store and opened up a cabinet. It still had several photos in it. A truancy letter and a personal letter written from a daughter to her father. It felt so weird reading this person's thoughts and looking at their memories without ever knowing them. Story 33. I worked in the sorting area for a month sorting electronics. It was mostly crap, but I did get this big RC robot that shot little rockets. The guy across me did not find it amusing. Also plugged in an old drill which promptly tripped a fuse in the warehouse. Story 34. I bought a life-sized cutout of Chewbacca from Sally Ann's charity shop. Cost me $10, worth it to see the looks on people's faces when I drove him home in the convertible. Now my husband and I move him around the house and pretend like he's alive. Story 35. One time I was shopping at Goodwill and found a $200 infrared thermometer for $3 because the person who donated it couldn't figure out how to change it from C to F and thought it was broken. It was a Fluke 561 with K-type thermocouple port. Story 36. Years ago, my grandfather worked in an unclaimed airport baggage store, fixing and tinkering with electronics. He had a larger portable radio come in that didn't work and started to take it apart. The entire inside was stuffed with weed. Story 37. A briefcase of about 20 display model cell phones. This is pre-smartphones. Just fake cell phones, display models from a cell phone store. They don't turn on, they don't have batteries, no electronics. Also, used underwear with streak marks. Story 38. I used to work at Value Village, and one day somebody brought in an entire truckload of machines used in a convenience store. Those hot dog rollers, Slurpee machines, warming cases, and surprisingly, that ended up selling them. Story 39. An SM collection. There was a whip, a fur glove, several heavily illustrated, insanely violent novels from the 70s, and other stuff I've forgotten. My manager let me take most of it for 99 cents an item. She kept the fur glove. Story 40. A blazer vest with a live bat comfortably nestled inside it. Cute little guy. Never got pictures before the age of smartphones, I'm afraid. Got the thickest pair of gloves to carefully grab him and release him outside. Story 41. Worked there one summer at a satellite drop-off area by a bar. Weirdest was a medical study skull made from a real human skull. It came in a legit medical study supply box. The top of the skull was cut and hinged. Story 42. An old oil painting that has a very abnormal-looking eye. The way they're painted makes you think they're watching you, but it's just the angle it seems. Needless to say, the painting didn't find another owner. Story 43. A dog, a literal live puppy, was dumped in one of our donation bins. It had been in there at least 2 days, we'd figured. In the end, it turned out to be fine, and our manager found a home for it. Story 44. Not a worker, but one time I found a handwritten Bible in German from 1849. The 14-year-old me couldn't afford the $150, but I assumed that it might have gone for more online. Story 45. My mom works at the Salvation Army. She found a coat with $1,000 cash inside. Guess who got themselves extra college money? This guy. Story 46. I don't work at a Goodwill, but my brother once bought a rock he found on the shelf there for $11. There was nothing special about it. It was just a normal rock. Story 47. I don't work there, however, I went to one and found a deck of really nice-looking cards for 50 cents. Took it home and found out they were worth $35 to $50. Story 48. We once had someone donate a guillotine. I think we sold it for $30. Okay, it was a magician's guillotine, but still a rather unusual donation. Story 49. An entire cardboard box of original newspapers from historical events. Kennedy assassination, Nixon resignation, Man on the Moon, etc. Story 50. A book with Bible for the Deaf written across the cover, while the rest of it was written in Braille. They kinda missed the point with that one. Story 51. 3-man tent. All poles, excellent condition, complete with crap-filled underwear stashed away in one of the pockets attached to said tent. Story 52. Like 1,000 VHS tapes in a wet box. He wanted the box back, too. I try not to throw crap away in front of people, but I had to do it at the time. Story 53. I was volunteering at a Goodwill once, and while sorting donations, came upon an urn that still contained the ash of human remains. Story 54. Not me, but a friend of mine who worked at Goodwill for years. This particular Goodwill had a thing for people leaving toys in donation boxes. Story 55. I donated a purse with 8 balls of coke in it once. Kind of accidental. Sorry to whoever found it. I know people are in recovery. Story 56. I was doing community service at Goodwill, and someone dropped off a purse with a bag of cocaine in it. Story 57. Not a Goodwill worker, but once saw a giant wheel of Gruyere in the auction section. Story 58. So, will this thread be posted as an article on BuzzFeed on Thursday or Friday? Better yet, it will be repurposed as a YouTube video and shown on this channel. Story 59. Marital aids. Seriously, who the F wants to reuse your old worn-out toy? Story 60. Old XXX DVDs, donated with a crock pot full of moldy bean water. Story 61. Shoebox of used and unopened condoms was the worst of it. Story 62. A glass jar labeled Fart, June 1975. Story 63. A basket of taxidermy kittens. Story 64. A suitcase full of erotic toys. Story 65. A full box of trading cards. Story 66. This fat dragon toy. Story 67. A pair of yellow underpants. You know, these were white when I bought them. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.